Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with guest Brady Foulk, dog training expert. Hi, everyone. I am Lori Ann. I'm the host of Bleep Bulimia. And today we have Brady Foulk with us. He is a dog training expert. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it is my pleasure. And before we begin, I want your guests to know if you have a dog, great. We're going to talk about some dog things. But if you don't have a dog, we're also going to talk about all sorts of other things, my journey and how I got here and how dog training relates to bulimia. I'm excited to dive in with you.
Beautiful. I love it. So my first question, what got you into this?
Yeah, what got me into this is I grew up with dogs. I'm the oldest of six kids. So growing up, there was always animals running around, but they were really just wild animals. They sometimes didn't poop or pee inside the house, but they would run away, and some of them had to get rehomed because we just couldn't handle them. They were just a lot. And I remember growing up, I was like, when I get a dog, when I'm like out on my own, like it's not going to be like this. So when I was 22, I got my first dog. I got an Australian Shepherd. I named him Bumblebee because he had a lot of energy. He wiggles his butt really fast. Um, and we would go on runs and all sorts of stuff all the time. And I bought him the best treats, and he would sleep in my bed. And I remember one day I left for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I left him in my room. And I came back, and a chunk of my carpet was missing, and there was poop. There was like 4 piles of poop. It was terrible. My dad's Father's Day present had got eaten. My new Tim Ferriss Tools of Titans book had been destroyed, and I was like, "Oh man, this is terrible." I mean, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened, but it was when I finally hit my breaking point, my rock bottom, and I was like, "This has to change." I finally had enough leverage to convince myself, like, I got to do something different than what I've been doing because doing the same thing over and over again definition of insanity. That's at least what my parents told me. So, so I found a mentor. I found a guide. Her name is Susan Garrett. I recommend her to everyone because she's just phenomenal. She's a 30-time plus world agility champion, and she's done it with multiple dogs, right? So I believe if something works, you shouldn't just be able to use it in one area of your life. It should be universal in a sense. So I've taken these principles and I've used it for dogs. So I started with my dog and getting him crate trained and ringing a bell to go potty and learning how to roll over. And now he can bring me a beer out of the fridge if I want it, right?
I love it.
I trained a pig how to paint a big potbelly pig named Cashew. She's raised over $10,000 for this farm animal refuge is the name, selling her paintings, and there's these abstract paintings. But I did this to help her build confidence and to overcome being abused and neglected. They come from terrible places. These are like test pigs and like other bad situations, terrible things. So, um, but the first step was leverage, right? And I had to get leverage and I had to like hit that rock bottom where I say, enough is enough. It's not, I should do this. It's, I must change this now. There's no other options. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I got to do this. And as I hit that point, it wasn't all easy. I had to go through the hard decisions is an easy life. So I had to do the work in order to train my dog. Because I tell people you could handle anything in three ways. You could ignore it, which is fine. Some people, and my parents, that's what they did. They ignored the dog until they couldn't anymore, and then they got rid of the dog. Some people do that with their partners and they ignore something, they don't have the conversation, then they just get a divorce, right? You got to do the work. But step two is, or the other option is managing. You can manage the behavior and just like helicopter parent and always be like correcting them and like looking over their shoulder, seeing if they're doing something right. And managing helps too, like with dogs, having them on leashes and managing technique, and that helps a lot from them running away from you. Um, but finally, the last thing you got to do is train, and you got to create a an ecology, right? You got to change the motivation behind why you're doing this thing. You got to create a dog who just loves being by you and doesn't want to run away from you like our family dogs did, right? My dog would never run away. He loves being at home because I grow his brain. We're learning things constantly. He knows he's safe. There's a lot of variety. There's connection. He feels important at the house. So I'm making sure his needs are getting met too. And I'm really connecting and appreciating his world. I have leverage because like he loves the growth and everything happening here. And when we do run into problems like we do, we're able to ask a better empowering question, which is kind of the fun part I want to get into with the bulimia stuff here is like, how do you interrupt patterns and create new empowering patterns? Because like I've struggled with stuff outside of dog training, right? My own life stuff that I've had to overcome. Um, but anywho, that's my 2 cents. I appreciate y'all.
That's awesome. I really love the story. And you're right. I think that a lot of us just manage more so, the ones that have pets. I've been guilty of that, but
Yeah.
I know my dogs won't run away from me. I mean, my one dog chose me. Like I was there and there were a whole bunch of little puppies and some of them were cuter than him. I have to admit, like that more original, but he wouldn't leave
Yeah.
me alone. So I took him home and honest to goodness, or I kept him. Um, he's turning 15 and when I go to work now, he does have separation anxiety. And that I don't know how to cure, but even particularly that he's 15 now. But those are
Yeah.
things that I've noticed. Like he barks a lot. My mother says he barks almost all day when I'm gone. Like he's just like really does not like me being away. But that's really interesting. But I'm really interested also in you going forth with that, how breaking those habits, because you're absolutely right. I'm as of the 11th of this month, I'm 13 years free of bulimia, but it took a lot of what you're talking
Yeah.
about, you know, breaking habits.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And finding something that feels a little bit better. I'm sure that you have things that feel better now
Yes.
when you run into like those moments, right? And I ask people like, is it sustainable or is it obtainable? And a lot of times we're doing things that are just obtainable. Like me, right? I grew up playing baseball, and so like I would use chewing tobacco for a long time, and I've always said I have an addictive personality. And then vapes come around, and like I'm like, okay, let's try this thing, right? And it's a bad idea, right? Then you gotta break these habits, because vaping or chewing tobacco, it can, or alcohol, whatever it may be, right? Weed, it could in the moment change your state and like get you to feel better about the thing, which is it's obtainable, right? But long term, you're doing things to your body that aren't the best for it. And so now my goal is like I love water. And I was listening to your water specialist episode, right? Because I have my own like pH stick. I have these little alkaline sticks that I can put in my water. I can't see that, but to raise the pH in it and like reverse osmosis systems. And anywho, it's a more sustainable pattern than doing something else. If I really need something, I can take a breath and take a drink of water, and like that will also reset me. But I had to train myself when I'm feeling this. I need to reach for my water bottle instead of reaching for the vape. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a tough one to do because your mind associates it with pleasure.
Yeah.
Uh, or if you're going through something like you said, um, yeah, it is pleasure. So you might be, angry or frustrated or depressed, like your vape, just like food, is something that somehow you think you associated with pleasure. But like you said too, it's not doing good for your body.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's very honest and vulnerable because it is pleasure. And I think it is admirable to acknowledge that. And it's also intelligent to look at on a scale of 1 to 10, how much pleasure am I really getting? And it's a low level of pleasure compared to how I feel after I drink water or I do something that really meets my needs in a more um, fulfilling way, like that typically involves like me doing a dog training lesson. I get a lot of value from giving back and I'm going to help you give you a couple of tips with your pup and the separation anxiety too. I remember that because my grandma, she's the Southern California Chihuahua president. She
Oh,
lives in San Diego, so she has a bunch of little dogs. But one of them, this was a bigger dog, and she had a bunch of hot spots on her, and they gave her Benadryl, all sorts of things to try to help her like clear up. They thought it was allergies, and she just had them forever. So they was like, we'll just manage this. And I moved in with them as I was transitioning out of my parents' house to living on my own. I lived with them for like 6 months. And I started training with her, and I just started teaching her how to like love her bed just a little bit more. So instead of just wandering around aimlessly, like, what do I do? It's like, oh, I can just go to my bed and chew a bone. all of these hotspots went away. And like over the span of these 6 months, like it wasn't overnight, obviously, but as she got more comfortable and I would play with her and I would take her places and walks like you're already doing, right? But like also the training of teaching her how to be more confident, just chilling on her bed. Uh, all these things went away. And she was like 14 years old. So it wasn't like she was a puppy.
So that can be done. And so they don't, it's not really true that they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, so to speak, quote unquote.
Yeah, I do believe you can teach them things. There's some things you got to just make the ethical decision of like, is this really worth like my time and energy? Is it worth their time and energy to train? Because you've got to make a commitment. You can't just like kind of train, kind of not. That's not fair to the dog either, you know?
Yeah, I know
So,
that's.
but you can teach old dogs new tricks.
Well, I guess I have to say that because 2 years ago, so mine's 15, so 2 years ago he was 13, and my other one is now 13, so she was 11. And they spent a lot of time on a farm and just running around at the beginning. So when I moved into the city and started walking, they really didn't know how to deal with people. But I
Yeah,
got
I
them to
bet.
do that fine. But then, of
Good.
course, I was telling you I moved in with my mom, then I had two more dogs. And that took a while to train all four of them to be able to walk properly together because it was mayhem at the beginning. And now it's really simple. So you're right.
Yeah.
But they have to get adjusted to it. They have to and you have to get adjusted to it. Like as a person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important one too. Like walking with your dogs and not tripping over them or stepping on one of them. I feel terrible if like a dog runs underneath my feet and like, oh my gosh, right? So like that's an important one. So you got a lot of leverage convincing you to do it.
Yeah. But that's where I was thinking what you were talking about, because even when you're training the dog, you also have to train yourself,
Hmm.
right? Because I had to train myself. I had to obviously that there's patience involved, there's routine involved, there's making sure that they understand, but you have to like instead of just like you said, letting it go or managing it, you got to make it so that it's consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, training yourself is a big one because you have to fall in love with training the human and the animal, right? Because like animals are really diligent and they're eager to learn. They want to learn, and humans can be too if you like align things the right way. But I run into a lot of limiting beliefs of like, oh, I'm gonna mess up my dog, or what if I do the wrong thing, or I don't know where to start. And as I find my clients run into these things, I just ask them a question. I go, by having these thoughts and by not training, are you helping your dog? Like, are you guys getting better at anything? And they're not, right? By procrastinating and putting things off, it's it's only hurting your dog, and it's the leverage that sometimes people need to see to be like getting out of their own head and be like, hey, who else are you causing pain to right now? Who else is like not benefiting from this? Who has gotten hurt in the past, right? Who are you going to hurt in the future by continuing to like believe this story that you can mess things up? Because the only way you can mess things up is if you don't train. And I 100% believe that because people bring me dogs at all stages of life, right? If I had that belief, if I believed that I can mess up a dog worse than that, like I wouldn't have a job because, or if a dog was like too far gone, um, it wouldn't be possible to do what I do. And everyone is able to overcome anything as long as you have a goal. You got to know what you want and you got to know why you want it. And then you can develop a plan from there. But you got to know what you want first and then why you want it. That's the most important parts, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
I
And
help
actually,
people get really clear on those.
yeah, but actually, I was going to say that you're not just hurting, you're hurting yourself too. Because I know, when like training the dog, particularly potty training, getting them out, whatever, if you don't work hard at that, then when you come home and there's messes everywhere, you get upset. So it's hurting you not to do the work to train them to get out there. And
Yeah.
so there is that because emotionally you get frustrated. And then, of course, some people might lose their temper or, patience wise. So it's it helps both you and the dog. It's just like walking a dog. It helps both you and the dog. It gets you out and gets you exercising. And it's a good,
Yeah.
it's healthy for everyone. So everybody wins. It's a win-win. I just thought of something which is strange because you were saying people being worried about if they're going to do something or whatever. I find that with pets, it's become a lot like with people that there's higher and higher demand. So like, all right, I remember my daddy used to always feed like a boiled egg and a hot dog to the dogs, right? But now
Mhm.
there's certain stigmas that, oh, you should feed your dog a certain thing, you know, don't do, like there's so many rules and regulations that we didn't have when I was growing up. We always had dogs too, and we didn't have these rules, and they lived forever. Like it wasn't like they didn't die
Yeah.
young from having not eaten the proper things. But we're really sticklers on that. You know, like I mean, I hear people, yeah, well, my dog only eats this, my dog only eats that. But I'm going, but if they were out in the wild, they wouldn't be doing that. And they grew up really back when they were in the wild. So what
Yeah.
is your idea on that? Like, I mean, about being so picky about, you know, the diet and the regime and all of that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I have clients from all over the spectrum. Some of them do raw feeding, some of them kibble, some of them make their own meals every single day for their dogs, right? And I do my best to have a similar view as you of like I grew up, I was one of our neighbors was talking to me about her dog and just like its diet and stuff, and same thing kind of came up, and I was like, man, I remember we would have like fridge cleanup days at my house, and we would take everything out of the fridge and we put it there, and that would be all the dogs' food, and it'd be like old hot dogs or
Yeah.
steaks that we didn't eat, like the old chicken, and this stuff would be like on the verge of being bad, and the dogs would just chow down. I would never do that for my dog now, but those dogs, like that's what they all got, right? Um, and so I do think it kind of is like whatever kind of meets your lifestyle. I think there's things that are better and things that are worse, just like with water, right? There's better water and there's worse water. Uh, and so being mindful of these things can help you in certain ways, but also it's it's interesting because some dog trainers will like only train about nutrition, right? And they'll only consult about that, and nutritional things can change a dog's reactivity. Like there's dogs who are aggressive because certain nutritional things aren't getting met and there's chemical imbalances. So it is important to have some awareness that these things can go on. Same for us, right? If you have a chemical imbalance, it's not really your fault if like you're being triggered in certain ways because you're imbalanced. Um, so I'm mindful of it, but I'm more concerned about the what's being rewarded, and what's being connected by like all these food things. Funny thing, side note, my brother he's in the army. He joined like 6 months ago, and they have him do these incantations. I'm a big believer in incantations. Like I love my life, and I'm so blessed. God's wealth is circulating in my life. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence. And I give thanks for all my riches now and all of God's wealth because I am one with God and God is everything. I have these incantations that I condition over and over myself. So if I run into problems, I can like say these things, and I sincerely believe it. And so my brother, he had his graduation ceremony, and they had him say their incantation, and I don't know what it was, but they were chanting it very like powerfully. And I was like, when do they make you guys do that? And he's like, breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day. And I was like, oh, that's genius. They're like syncing up this really powerful, like you love when you get to eat. This is your one time to chill with your friends. And now you're chanting these things. So you're associating them together. So the power of training is just immense. And so I look at like, okay, what is the dog learning during feeding time? And a lot of time it's just like waiting until I give him permission to start eating. That's just like a good basic one, just to be like, I call it grandma's rule. It's like you got to make your bed before you can go out with your friends, and it's like you got to wait or like say your prayer before you can like enjoy your meal. But anywho, that's how I see food situations.
Yeah, I actually I did do that. I trained my dogs to and let me tell you that it's like the older one, he's like just waiting for and drooling and everything. It's so cute, but they're very good and they do that. Uh, I guess part of the thing that I wanted to connect to with the diet whole thing. So there's extremes, right? People who are like extremists. And I think sometimes that and society has made that in general, but also for people too, right? Like your diet and so on and so forth. When I stopped my bulimia, I promised I'd never go on a diet again.
Mhm.
And if I want something, I have it. Now, I'm lucky. I really love salads. I really do. I mean, it's something I really enjoy. I like healthy food over, no, I'm not a big pizza person. I'm not a big chocolate person. I'm lucky that way. But if I do feel like a pizza or a piece of chocolate, I'll have it. Like it's not, like how am I trying to say it? We try and um, there's a word for it, not just limit, but to restrict. That's the word. Restrict ourselves from things that I don't feel is necessary to do. And in fact, it's bad because the more you restrict something, the more you want it. Like
Mhm.
there's that thing, right? Like it's just
Mhm.
in your mind because
It's
it's gonna say. So that's where I was just trying to say, like people and like dogs, I think being that restrictive is in my opinion, I don't feel that it's healthy. Like if you're going to give a dog a treat, like some people won't even give certain treats, but if there's a certain treat that your dog likes now and again, it's okay to give it to them. Not going to kill them. Right. I don't know how I'm trying to say this properly, but I just think over restriction is not healthy for anyone.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I use this in dog training. I use it as opposition reflex. Like if you keep someone away from something, you create tension and they want to go get it.
Yeah.
And I'm the kid. If you tell me don't press that button, I'm probably gonna go press the fucking button. Like you can't tell me not to do something.
Right.
Um, and discipline it's a muscle, but it's one way to handle things, but it's not the best way to handle things. Like you we were kind of talking about it earlier. You got to find something else that meets your needs even higher, because if you're just like resisting that urge every day, like it gets heavy. And so I think you can procrastinate intelligently. I've always been a procrastinator. I don't know if anyone else feels like they're a procrastinator.
Yep.
But I've started saying, like, I can just have it tomorrow. And
Mhm.
I was just like, I could just do it tomorrow. If I really want to, I could do it tomorrow. But today, not today. Uh, and then tomorrow comes, and I'm like, maybe not today. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. And I can procrastinate intelligently on this thing, and I just procrastinate indefinitely. And my brain still is like, okay, yeah, you could do it tomorrow. So I'm not saying I can never have this thing ever again. It's like I could have it tomorrow if I choose to. So I really believe in choices, and I want dogs to have choices too. I don't believe in keeping things away from dogs. I want them to be able to be around the things that stimulate them and to make a more intelligent decision. So when my dog is hungry, I have bedtime cookies. And so if he's hungry, he goes to his crate, and that's his way of telling me, like, hey, Dad, I'm hungry. Right. And so like I can give him a treat there, but it's better than him foraging for food and trying to get into trouble somewhere because he can't control. He's like, I know how to ask for what I want.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just a better form of communication, and it's just healthier in my feelings.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that and then there's the other side of it too. The my mom, I had to tell her to stop treating my dogs. Because she okay, I grew up, she's Italian, right? So there's another thing that's connection, like food, right? That's their way
Mm-hmm.
of love. And she does the same thing with the pets. And I have to tell her there's
Mm.
a certain limitation. Like it's good to do it, not restrict, but limitations. There's the other side of it too, right? So again, too, if I have a piece
Yeah.
of pizza, I'm not going to eat the whole pizza. I'll have a piece of pizza, right? That's it. And my craving's gone. Um, but that's the same thing
Yeah.
with my mom. I try and explain to her, like the dog, like giving them too many treats is not good. It's not healthy for them. And it also loses that. So my dogs know they're going to get a treat a certain time for a certain, like, so if I'm leaving in the morning, they know they're ready for it. Like there's consistency there. But if you're just throwing them out all the time, it's like, it's just like food for them. It's not a treat anymore, right? It's like,
Yeah, and then you got to be careful of what you're reinforcing and rewarding, because like I
yeah,
was always trained to like finish my plate, and like you
yeah,
don't get up till your plate is finished.
right.
And as I've gotten older, and I got up to 225 pounds one time, I worked at In-N-Out, and they give you a free burger and fries every day.
Oh,
And I was 22 at the time, 21. I was 20 at the time, actually. And so, like, I didn't eat anything else. I would just wait until work. I'd eat my burger, my first one. My metabolism slowed way down, and I ate these things, but I had to find that balance of like, okay, I can't eat these things every single day. And then I had to go find a gym. I started doing jujitsu and kickboxing and boxing. I found a community that I love that I still do today. And I retrained myself to find something that's a little bit more satisfying than stuffing my face and like having a whiskey and Coke, or I would like whiskey sours too. Uh, and I would like, right? That's what I used to like. Now I enjoy jujitsu. I enjoy going for walks. I enjoy water. I don't do that anymore because that's not who I am. And so I've had a whole identity shift. Like that's not who I am. I love water.
yeah, that's really interesting. That's nice. I
Yeah.
I know my family, we're all kind of like not loving water people, but the thing is, it's strange because at work now, what I do is I always have a glass of water and I always fill it up when it goes down and I'll drink it and I like it. But you think you don't like it. It's like that. I think that's what people, I think they don't like it more than that they don't like it. Because once you start drinking it, it's actually pleasant and it's refreshing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a mindset, and I think there's part of it is a mindset as well. People who say they don't like water, it's just because they're thinking they prefer to have like a Coke or a coffee or something that has what they say flavor to it. But water's so refreshing. And so now I keep a water all the time. And kind of glad too, because I know that one thing that my father, before he passed away, they said that he never did, he never drank enough water. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the brain is really good at making up stories and generalizing, distorting, and deleting. So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I
Yeah.
just want everyone to know that, like, whether you think you can, whatever behavior pattern, unresourceful thing, or whether you think you can't, you're right. And like, I believe about myself certain things, and sometimes it just takes. Like, everyone has these tables and these legs underneath of it when they're forming their beliefs, and sometimes people say that I look good, right? I'm a good looking man. And then someone could come over to me and they go, well, I know they said that, but has anyone ever lied to you before? And I'm like, shit, were they lying to me right there? Like, and now you start chopping down these lakes a little bit. And it's like, is water doesn't taste good compared to what, you know? And then it's
Yeah.
like, what is it really that's making you want to drink this thing? It's probably a chemical inside the water bottle or inside the Coke that's making you have this craving. And it's like it's in chips too. It's like they don't quench when you eat an apple, you're supposed to feel full after it, and you typically do. But when you eat a whole bag of chips, you're not full. You want to eat more. So you got to start. Sometimes awareness in itself is just enough to get people to be like, huh, maybe I should find a mentor or a teacher or someone like yourself to help people overcome these things.
Yeah. Which that's a funny thing that you say because now I'm very conscious and sometimes I'll be hungry and I always have actually little chocolate bars in my because I hand them out and stuff in my drawer, the little tiny things. Sometimes I'll have one.
Yeah.
But if I'm hungry, I'll sit there and look at it and go, that's not going to satisfy my hunger. I'm better
Mhm.
off having, like you said, an apple and a glass of water, and then I'll be satisfied. I have that little piece of chocolate. It's not going to do anything. So I actually look at that. And then I sit there and go, yeah, you know what? An apple is also healthier. It's got a lot more nutrition in it. So I'm getting satisfying both my hunger and my body's needs for nutrition. But I'm very
Yeah.
conscious of that. It's not that I won't have one now and again, but if it's
Mm.
based just because I feel like it, that's one thing. But if it's based because I'm hungry, I try and find something that's going to satisfy the hunger and not something that won't. Because like you said, I can even eat a whole bag of potato chips and it won't solve that problem. Like you said, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that question that you asked too, is like, what result am I getting? Because I will use chocolate and candy to reward myself for something. If I do something amazing, like, sure, I enjoy this as a reward, but is it going to satisfy my hunger? That's an amazing, brilliant question to ask. So I just applaud you for that.
Thank you.
And you just answer honestly.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your practice and is there any way people can contact you? I don't know how you work with your
Yeah.
business at this time, so just please talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah. So if you want to contact me, you can go to my website. It's info.newdirectiondogtraining.com. And you can check out a little bit more about me. But what's really fun is my Instagram and my TikTok right now. I have a 7-year-old puppy, or he's still a puppy in my eyes, Bumblebee. And then I have a 7-month-old puppy. Her name is Curiosity.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, I believe when you get furious, you get curious. So I named my dog Curiosity. So I'm always going to be curious. And I'm training her how to ride a skateboard right now. So I've, I know,
Oh,
right? I
and where
always saw
can,
these dog ride skateboards. Say that again?
I was just gonna say, if you can give us, where do they find you on Instagram and TikTok?
Yeah. So N as in Nancy, D as in Drew, dog training. So it's ND dog training.
Beautiful. Oh, that's
So
a
yeah,
lot of
we
fun.
are. Yeah, no, it's been fun. I bought this skateboard. I got a kid skateboard, and I thought it'd be like half the size of a regular skateboard, but still manageable because she's a mini Aussie Doodle, so she's a little bit smaller. But this thing is like this tiny. It's so small, and I'm like, my brother helps me with some of my social media. And I was like, I got to return this thing because there's no way I can teach her to ride it. And he's like, you have to teach her like how to ride this thing. So we've been at it 2 weeks now, and she can get 3 paws on pretty confidently. We're working on the fourth one, and I'm like pulling it around on a leash so it's moving. So she's getting comfortable with it moving right now. But yeah, it's a fun little thing that I'm doing.
Oh, that is so neat. That's really neat. Well, really appreciate you being on the podcast. I mean, honestly, it's a really interesting information and a great story. And I love what you're doing. I think, should I have another dog? This is always questionable when you're at my age and then your dogs are starting to age as well with you, whether to get a puppy or not. But I'll definitely be
Yeah.
watching out for your stuff. And definitely, I think it's worthwhile. Like, I've trained my dogs as best I could, but I think it's really worthwhile getting professional training for a pup. I really do. In hindsight, if I could go back, I would have done it. Um,
Yeah,
but
I believe in coaches for everything. I have like 3 other coaches. I have a speaking coach who helps me for podcasting. I have a coach that helps me in my relationship. I have a dog training coach. I have coaches for all sorts of areas of my life because I feel if you really want to go further faster, you need to compress decades into days. And the only way you do that is by finding someone who's already done it. Like you have gone through years, 13 years, right? You said?
yeah,
Congratulations again.
thank you.
And you have more stories than someone who hasn't been there, right? And so you can share shortcuts and be like, hey, I know this is what, like sometimes people think things are cute, and I was like, I know you think this is cute right now, like playing with your shoe, but what ends up happening is they become obsessed with your shoe and then you don't have any shoes, you know? So maybe we should keep their shoes away from them right now as a puppy. So there's
Yeah.
just like little tidbits.
Oh, that's really sweet. Okay, so everybody, if you want to check Brady out, please check him out on Instagram. Again, that's ND Dog Training, and on TikTok as well. And thank you
Yeah,
again so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.